Hello and welcome to the Wasp Frame build video from KO Frames. This is just a quick video to show how the frame goes together. So in the kit you'll get obviously a set of arms, a bottom front plate, a bottom rear plate, the top plate, two FPV camera guards, a VTX antenna mount, two GoPro mounts. These are two little carbon fibre spacers for the GoPro mounts. You'll also then get 30mm standoff, four 20mm standoffs, four 10mm standoffs, four M3 flange nuts, two M3 cap head washers, and two TPU 2mm washers that help grip the GoPro mount. A rubber grommet for your XT60 wires to hold those in place, four M3 silicon washers to help mount your flight controller on, some M2 6mm screws and washers to mount your FPV camera, because often the stock screws that come with them are not long enough, some 16mm cap head screws, 14mm, 12mm, 8mm, 6mm cap head screws, and then some 8mm button head, 6mm countersunk, and some 6mm button head screws, as well as a kind of a multi-purpose HD camera mount as standard. So the easiest way to build the frame is to start with, if you take the two bottom plates, one of the arms, you're going to start with the 16mm cap head screws, which are for the centre of the arms. So you're going to put that through from the bottom, pop an arm on. So the arms go facing, so the teardrop is pointing to the middle of the frame, and then this is going on this way around, so just line that up. We'll just screw that in by hand to start with. So that's going to go like that. We then have this centre block, so you can see the arms do touch each other when they're built, and then this centre block also helps stop them from twisting. So the easiest thing to do is pop that in there, and then I would do the opposite corner. So if we pop this in here, you can line that up. So I don't think you can see on the camera. Yeah, the screws holes all align. Oh, pardon me. And we just pop that through. We're not doing these up tight at the moment, makes it easier just to get them all in to start with. And again, just make sure the orientation of the arms is right, so the teardrops are pointing towards the middle of the frame. So, and you can see the front part of the frame is lower, which allows you sort of to drop the FPV camera down lower and keeps the whole centre of gravity of the frame lower down, and the GoPro is more sort of in line with the battery rather than sitting out as high on top of the frame as some frames. So we've got that in. Now we've got those in, let's just screw those up. I won't clamp them down really tight at the moment, you get the idea. So your arms are in, and then we're going to go with the 14mm cap head screws. They go through, and you need an M3 flange nut just on the outside. So we're just going to put all these on loosely and then tighten them afterwards. So it's also worth noting that these M3 press nuts are actually threaded, so they're reverse threaded, so they cut into the carbon fibre rather than just press in. So the more you tighten the screw down, the tighter this gets into the carbon fibre. So that shouldn't, I've not had one ever work loose, which is great. If you do need to change the arm, which is hopefully unlikely, you can do that without the nuts inside falling out. So I've got just a little socket wrench. There we go. It's trickier to do this on camera than you might think. So the second one. And the third one. One more. And there we go. Right, the next thing to do, I think, here is to put on the standoffs for the main stack, which are just 10mm. So you're going to want these 6mm cap nuts, and they're just going to go in the back corners. Pop those in. You can obviously tighten those down more when you're actually building the frame. They're pretty tight. Like anywhere where you're, and here you just want to make sure you're going into the back hole, or the hole nearest the front, in fact. Like anything that you're building where you've got metal screwing into metal, ideally you would probably want to put a little drop of thread lock, blue thread lock on there, just to hold it. If you're trying to unscrew it and you're struggling, usually just applying some heat to the screw head with a soldering iron will break the thread lock. So those are the standoffs. You can see we've got a pretty low stack height. So I'm not going to put them all on there, but you can put these silicone O-rings on here to mount your flight controller. You've then got on the back either a 30 by 30 mounting pattern or a 20 by 20mm mounting pattern to mount your VTX, and then plenty of room at the front to mount your receiver, depending on what you're running, which you kind of just stick in with some double-sided tape, or there's holes for zip ties as well. So the next thing to do is get your FPV camera plates. So these slide on like that, trying to get this at the best angle, and then you can see there's the tab there that's going to go into that hole. Now what you'll find is you've got to get these at 90 degrees to push them on, because they're a snug fit. So they're in pretty firm. If you're trying to put it on at a slight angle, it's not going to fit because it won't have lined up, but you can see it does. If you just test it on a piece of carbon, you can see that it does fit smoothly. So if you're trying to put it on and you think you're probably holding it at the wrong angle, and there you go. So they're a pretty tight fit, which is what we want. So there, before we've even got any standoffs or anything else in, held pretty tightly in place. So we're then going to take a 20mm standoff, and we're going to have a 20mm standoff in the bottom with an 8mm cap head. Now, because this is a tight fit, you might just need to put the standoff in the front and roll it back. These are exactly sort of 20mm, so they are snug. And I'm just going to line up those holes. Yeah, you can just see that on the camera. And then we're going to take a couple of 8mm cap head screws, pop those in. Like so, and then another one is going in the front here. Very helpful if I did that on camera, wouldn't it? So we will just line that up. It's hard to get it showing on camera, so it's so you can see it's lined up. And again, 8mm cap head screws. I'm going to screw that in. side. Brilliant. So that's pretty solid already. Now, at this point, you're going to want to actually build your quad and wire everything up, put your camera in. Putting the camera in is the trickiest part, because quite often, well, this is 20mm wide, because stock size of standoffs is 20mm wide. Depending on which micro camera you've got, a lot of them are actually only 19mm wide, so they're a mil too short. So we have some, I can't pick one up, but these M2 washers. So what I find I end up doing is putting one in on its side. I guess you could even glue it in place, and then sliding the camera in, and then getting a pair of tweezers and trying to put another one on the top. So that is one of the fiddlier parts of the frame build. So once you've got the quad all built, the other thing to mention is, the other thing you want to do is, while you're building the quad, when you're soldering your wires for your X260, you want to actually solder the wires through this grommet. So you've got the wires coming off your all-in-one flight controller, or if you've got one of those Maytech VTX and PDVs, through the grommet to the XT60. And then all you're going to do is take this, obviously, the top plate. You need to note it's got countersunk holes, so they are going to go on the top. You also might notice that the straps for the LiPo straps are chamfered, so they're not going to cut your LiPo. You don't need to worry about. They're not going to cut your LiPo straps. You don't need to worry about sanding those. So you thread your straps through. And then this is going to go, you'll see that the front, you can see it lines up here. So if that's not lining up, you know there's something wrong. So that's going to go in here, push it all the way to the front, and then it's going to lever down over those bits there. So if I hold it from the side, you can see that comes in there. And that holds the front and the top absolutely rock solid. So at that point, we may as well screw this top plate on. So you're going to take those M6 countersunk screws. They're obviously going in the middle. So nothing's protruding over your battery. Nothing's protruding up into your LiPo. So we'll stick that on there. Trying to do this so you can see on camera. And then you would have your X260 wire with this grommet on it. You can tuck the grommet into here, and you can tidy that up. And then obviously you've got your wires coming out, and they're held away from the props. And then on the back, you've got your button head screws, and you've also got this VTX mount, so you can zip tie your SMA to this plate, and then that screws on the top. And that means when you're taking the quad apart, you can unscrew that and it's still attached to your SMA. You don't have to cut the zip ties every time you want to take the top plate off and then re-zip tie it. So there are additional zip tie holes there if you really want to zip tie it to your top plate, but I really don't think that's needed. So we're going to just pop those in there. That's screwing in there. And then for the top plate, the frame doesn't come supplied with kind of a LiPo pad, because I think sort of the foam ones that you get, not everybody likes. Some people like using kind of Umi grip or some other kind of rubber solution. So the thing to do with the frame, I think, is to cut some thin strips and have one strip down the middle and then strips down each side, but just, I would personally cut a gap so you can access this screw head rather than put the grip over it. So once you've got the bulk of the frame built, we just need to finish off the front GoPro mount. So HD camera mount. So what we want to do is take the camera mount, and we want a 30mm standoff, and that is going to push through the wider section here is a snug fit, but it does go through, and you just want to make sure that that is lined up so it's central. And then a 20mm standoff at the back again, so they're lined up, and that is effectively going to sit in here. I don't know if you can see this on here. So the mount bit goes into that square hole, and the bar, no, I'm trying to get it in, I'm pushing the bar across. You got to line it up. There you go. The bar actually sits on the top plate, so that bar is bolted between those, also holding the top plate down in place. So the next thing to do, we'll move that out of the way now that's ready, is we want to put these GoPro mounts on. So we'll take them on the front. They go that way around, so you have the longer 30mm standoff at the front, and we're going to stick this on like that. So we just want the little 6mm cap head screws. We're going to go through there and screw into that. Now, I'm not going to do that completely tight at the moment. I'm going to leave that with a little bit of leeway, just so I've got some movement while I'm attaching it to the frame, because it makes it a little bit easier. And again on the other side. Now, this is slightly trickier to show on camera. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount this. If you imagine, this is going to sit like this, so these bars can go up and down here. So we're going to mount this with a 20mm standoff in the middle. So if we put that in and line it up, it's kind of nice that the flame clamps it in place. We're going to get one of our screws, and we want these cap head washers, which are impossible to pick up off the table. And that cap head washer is just going to go through here because it provides more surface to grip onto the GoPro mount, so it's not sliding around all the time. And we need a little TPU spacer, which helps as a gripper. So we are going to put that through there and put the gripper on. And, you know, actually this would have been easier to do one at a time. I'm going to take this off. And then, how can I show this on camera? So you've got my finger in the way. The washer, the GoPro mount, and then the little spacer, and then that's screwing in here to this mount, to this standoff. So we'll put that in. Again, we're just going to put that in loosely at the moment. And then we want to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to get one of my screws and the cap head washer. Got to slide it off the table to be able to pick it up. That's going that way around with your little TPU spacer, because that's sort of rubbery, that helps grip the GoPro mount. Wrong screwdriver. And then we're going to screw that in here just loosely, and now we're going to line that up and put that button head screw back in, which was a bit premature picking earlier. Right, so we've now got the GoPro mount, and it's useful to know that when you want to, once you've taken these screws out, we've not put them in yet obviously, you can tip this all the way up and then tilt it forward so it's out the way when you want to take the top plate off. So we're ready to screw that down. So what you need to do is just make sure you've got the standoff lined up so it's in the middle of those two raised bits of carbon, and you want to push it down so the mount drops into that hole on the top plate. Now you'll see, I don't know if it's going to come out on the camera, there's some gaps here. So we've got these carbon spacers which go in those gaps. So you want them, so you'll see they sort of slightly lean forwards, sort of tilting over that way. It's kind of hard to see on the camera, but they're literally just pushing that gap to line it up, trying to get this one in focus. And then you can put your screw through from the side. So I need to go back and tighten up those front mounts. So same on the other side. So it slopes kind of, so the top's sloping forwards. You just slide it into that little space there, level it up with everything else. And then that screws into the standoff in the centre. Right, now it's lined up, I can just go back, tighten up these screws at the front of the camera mount. And then you've got your HD camera mount that you can change the angle of to whatever angle you want it at. And obviously once you've got the angle that you're happy with, you can tighten these a little bit. You don't need to crank them down really hard. There's TPU in the middle that'll compress. You just want it. So, I mean, that's kind of rigid. Now, I think it's good to have it so it's pretty stiff, but in a crash, it will move in an impact and just absorb a bit of the impact from your camera. So that is the basic sort of build of the Wasp Frame. The only other thing I should have mentioned was if you've got the sort of FPV camera protection, you don't need to use the little TPU spacer there. Before you put these bolts in, you would put this on, and obviously that acts as the spacer, and it just provides a bit of protection on the front and on the bottom. I mean, that's 3mm carbon, so it's pretty solid anyway, but this obviously will keep your frame looking nice. Well, thanks for watching.